don't you get a job and go to work? You almost had me a job this morning.
Over the past century, media representations of African American culture, people, and their communities have been a major force in shaping the ways in which they are portrayed in popular culture. The negative constructions of African Americans are simply to appease and perpetuate racism, and this has been done since before the Civil War. On the vaudevillian stage, white performers would darken their skin using burnt cork and lampoon African American males. And historically, when Hollywood began making talkies, the need for blackface naturally subsided, but the stereotypes persisted. There was the introduction to the mammy, the pickaninny, the sambo, and the tragic mulatto.
Growing up, most of us were kind of like the early 2000s. Some of us late 90s television, so we grew up on, Kim Possible, Lizzie McGuire, Raven Simone's That's So Raven, and her and Cheetah Girls. We grew up on a lot of those people, and throughout Disney's history, they've cycled through the same couple of black artists as the token black people. We saw Zendaya, she's biracial, but Disney used her as like the token black person in any project that she allowed, basically. Raven Simone as well. China McClain in later shows, and Coco Jones. It just reflects on the industry as a whole. They want to say that they're diverse. They want to say that they're inclusive and they're about equity. And then you see what they've done in the past and what they still kind of do to today. And it's like, it doesn't feel like you're trying to be inclusive. Kind of just feels like you want to say, I'm a white ally.
Black women are forced to compare themselves to white women in the media, despite the fact that their aesthetics, their looks are significantly different. The fashion industry promotes favorable images that are mostly portrayed by white women. Black women and women of color do not profit from these pictures. Stereotypes and negative images of black people are fully reinforced in the fashion business. Good race relations required taking note of who was selling women lipsticks and miniskirts, which meant that advertisers began looking for black models. In October 1969, Life magazine featured Naomi Sims on the cover with the headline, "Black Models Take Center Stage." Inside featured a group shot spread of 39 black models represented by a new agency called Black Beauty, run by a former white model named Betty Foray. Racial progress was made in a multitude of ways, from modeling to styling to spokespersons. The 1973 Battle of Versailles changed the course of the fashion history. It was a reflection of what was going on politically and socially in terms of race relations. However, throughout the 1980s and 1990s, black women had solid careers and went ahead with an exceptional presence that was in demand. This is where the birth of the supermodel came to play. People knew black women's names, and they attained a level of fame synonymous with the designers of the runways they were walking for. The Battle of Versailles model Bethann Hardison became a leading activist for the diversity within the fashion industry, and in 1989 co-founded the Black Girls Coalition to celebrate the successes of black women in fashion. By the mid-1990s, the affinity for black models began to decrease.
I'm Veronica Collins. I'm a model full-time in New York. Growing up in New York, you're kind of thrown into like trends, fashion, and just style automatically. That allowed me, as I grew up, to just express myself like with my fashion, with just who I am in general. So that's what inspired me, basically, since just being in it so heavily. I kind of wanted to take my own field on it and kind of decide like, okay, so is this really what I want to do? So I'm lucky to have that experience. It took a while for me to really kind of understand that, because I would say from 2013 to about 2016, I would go to a lot of open calls to get, scouted. Like when I was unsigned, I just kept getting the feedback of like, oh, like we have someone that has a similar look to you. And like that never really clicked until I realized like, oh, like you already have a black quota that's filled. Like, like you already have your black girl. Just knowing like no matter what box that, the look you're supposed to fit in, you shouldn't. Bro, like 3 years ago, I cannot wear my hair like this to castings or box braids and, you know, all that stuff. It's like, it was like blasphemy. It's like, oh, we don't want that. Like, you know, but now it's like, oh yeah, like we love the urban look. Just feeling like the presence of being on like Madam CJ Walker's mansion alone was just like this eerie kind of like spiritual feeling of like, damn, like we've been through a lot and, you know, like we belong here. So like just seeing him choosing that place to showcase like his collection. We as Black people we created everything in a sense, you know? So to pay homage to it through fashion was just like mind-blowing. Well, Danessa, she is near and dear to my heart, just to, you know, be a face that represents, you know, her brand and her amazing, flawless foundation that melts into your skin. It's just, man, it's like a Black girl paradise. No matter what skin tone, no matter what race, no matter who you are, if you're talented, you're there. And that's what I love about her so much. Like, it's like a little family. It's amazing. It's just like a sigh of relief of like, okay, finally, like our issues are being solved and, you know, things are being brought to light, because it's like you shouldn't have one shade for like 12 Black models that are different skin tones. And it's like, I don't understand how long it took the industry to realize that, but I'm happy that it did. So I walked for House of Ama, Kiri, and Luar. So it was just like very historic, just kind of like, oh, you know, Black fashion is, you know, avant-garde and it's like grungy and, you know, like it's hood, it's hip hop. Like, no, like we're elegant, we're classy. Pieces that we wore were kind of like representing like slavery, and one was like the American flag, like kind of burnt up. So like, of course, that was like a big symbol, and like a shipwrecked kind of like rope that, you know, slaves would wear and like all that kind of stuff. So it was just like really, really powerful. I love it because it's like, Mom, like that girl looks like me, or like I want to be just like her. Like that, it's just like, it's such a crazy feeling to even think like you have that impact on like the youth. I feel like part of it now is like killer like Black brands that have been dominating fashion, like Brandon Blackwood, Telfar, like Curbito, Danessa, Sergio, had like so many. So it's just amazing to see like that like flourishing, of course, and people, no matter who you are, like rocking it, repping it. Like I read my Telfar like it's a Louis bag. Starting from the inside and working your way out, I think, is where fashion is heading.
I think that's what Black designers have done over the past couple of years. They just sort of said, you know what, I don't care if you don't see me. I'm gonna do my best and it'll speak for itself. So it just obviously felt amazing. When we came to set, it literally just like, I don't understand how it all just came together. Everyone's energy was so amazing. My favorite thing about Black Fashion Fair is actually the dedication page. It says, so the next generation doesn't have to wonder. And that was so powerful. One day, when I take this book and I give it to my future kids, I'm gonna say, hey, read the dedication. This was literally, I did this for you. And so I just thought that was really powerful, and it like warms my heart. I'd love to see like us rolling with the big dog. And I think the effect of that is like, okay, now you've seen what we can do. So we can deliver, because Virgil's last collection probably would go down in history as one of the most amazing design collections ever. So I want to see us get in there. I want to see us, you know, members of like LVMH. I want to see us dressing all the celebrities. I want to see every color spectrum in every collection. I want to see us just grow, and I think we're definitely headed in that direction.
When it comes to Black influencers being in this social media aspect, they don't really get as much attention as the white influencers do, especially when it comes to Black women. Now, it's pretty known that Black women create all the trends, especially on apps like TikTok and Instagram Reels. But when it comes to the highest earning influencers, the list has absolutely no Black influencers at all. It is just full of white influencers. This is an issue that has been brought out to the major public audience, but nothing's really being done about it. This is a big issue in the entertainment industry, and it seems that we can't even run away from this problem on social media.
My name is Ava Teso Clue, Ava_Teal Clue on TikTok, and I have 2 million followers.
All right, now, Ava, go ahead and read that next paragraph for us. Read that next page. Do you know where we at? What page? Oh my Lord, you weren't paying attention.
I just went cockeyed.
You want me to call home? You want me to call mom?
I'll say it's been okay so far. I mean, it's definitely like kind of ups and downs. Like if sometimes the algorithm will not push your video, or maybe your views will be a little bit low, or you're not getting as much, engagement. So it's kind of always just like a roller coaster. Sometimes you'll do really, really well. Sometimes a video will do really, really bad. People won't follow you. People will follow you. It's just kind of up and down. I would say just companies probably feel more comfortable with white people because most of the big brands that pay the most, they are white, so they're probably just looking for people who are like them. And sometimes I feel like they think that the audience that they want isn't necessarily really Black audiences. Really, is because majority is white people, so that's kind of what they look for to promote products, because they think that they'll reach a wider scale of people. It's just kind of interesting because I happened to a couple of my friends where my friends, they have a Black audience, they have a lot of followers, good engagement, but then a white influencer who has less followers or isn't even getting that many likes or views gets paid more than them. And it's kind of why? It doesn't really make sense as to why they would pay that person more, considering that they don't even have that many followers or likes compared to a Black person who has more followers and likes. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes if you talk about certain issues, the algorithm will really push your video. It'll be kind of either be under review for a long time, or it would just kind of do really, really bad, just kind of interesting and odd, because I feel like TikTok tries to sometimes try to shy away from social injustice videos and stuff like that. They don't want people to, have controversial things, on the For You page, so they don't push those type of videos. But sometimes it's necessary to have conversations about those. So that's another thing I kind of peep, because a couple people who would their whole account will be based off of trying to talk about Black issues. Sometimes they'll be kind of suppressed. And they also have a habit of banning people for no reason. And it's kind of odd. And I don't know, videos will take, if you do a video addressing something, especially if it's about white people, then it's the video get taken down and that's a strike in your account. And it's kind of I don't know. It is very iffy. Meanwhile, there's other videos of people doing crazy stuff that will stay up, but then you just trying to talk about an important issue and then you get suppressed. It was kind of dang, was this event not for us? Because the fact that we weren't prioritized kind of just sucked and kind of made everybody side eye what's going on? Do you guys even really care about Black creators? Because how did this happen?
Coming together to denounce these acts of racialized violence, but it also provides social support through expressing solidarity and sharing feelings of isolation, fear, and frustration with others. Therefore, social media use can serve as a variety of coping mechanisms. Social media can also be a site of expression, a place where Black Americans and other minority communities come together to air grievances, seek support, to celebrate, and also denounce those who oppress them. It also provides social support by expanding interpersonal networks and connects users with a community. However, social media can also increase exposure to racism and other forms of discrimination in the racialized internet sphere, which can normalize, unfortunately, Black and brown suffering. There are various African American musical influences seen throughout history. Those include sacred music, which includes spirituals and gospel music. There's also African American folk music, which link back to African cultural traditions. Stemming from field hollers, work chants, and game songs, folk music bursts with social commentary, along with all the other Black music that will be listed, like the blues, which form the foundation of contemporary American music. There's also military music, which began with the Revolutionary War. African Americans have always held a significant role in the armed services military band tradition. There's jazz, which evolved from ragtime, an American style of syncopated instrumental music. Jazz first materialized in New Orleans and is often distinguished by African American musical innovation. Rhythm and blues, the predecessor to soul music. R&B is another stylistically diverse genre with roots in jazz, the blues, and gospel music. There's rock and roll music, which incorporates elements from all African American music genres and combines them with American pop and country components. Like jazz, hip-hop has become a global phenomenon and has exerted a driving force on the development of mass media.
I am the interpersonal violence prevention and education specialist, and I manage the Office of Sexual and Interpersonal Wellness, and I'm also an adjunct professor in the Peace and Justice Studies department. I think off the top of my head, the main piece here is that the hypersexualization of women and girls prevents women and girls from creating their own sexual narratives. And that is kind of like the umbrella of where the harm comes from. I think around hypersexualization, when your sexual narrative has been identified for you, any of your choices are not fully your own, but also can be criticized and judged. So women and girls who choose what type of sex they engage with and with whom and with what frequency and what type of, and all of those things is typically in response, if they've been, if they've experienced hypersexualization, is in response to that. It's heightened for certain populations. Like we know that trans women and Black and brown women are often even more hypersexualized, sex workers. And so, there are a lot of subsets of that question, but I think overall limiting someone's sexual agency is the problem. I would say overall, it probably does more harm than good. I think that open conversations around sex are almost always a positive thing, so that people can experiment and ask questions and, think about sex and talk about sex in ways that they might have formerly been prohibited. And college is a great time for people to do that typically. Nobody ever, ever, ever in any shape or form, regardless of what they do, what they wear, how they behave, asks for violence or harassment or discrimination. End of analysis, end of point. Women, especially artists and performers who show a lot of skin when they're working or, have lyrics about sex, that is a choice that they're making. It's an empowerment decision. It's a artistic decision. It is a publicity decision. Whatever they are, all of those things are completely valid. I think the kind of universal line that you're mentioning is drawn where the woman draws it or where the individual draws it. As soon as we start seeing people's gender expression or dress or anything like that as being an indicator of openness to sex, then we're getting into a really unhealthy and scary situation. Because if we see those things as an invitation, then we see those things as an invitation with people around us, which is kind of like a hallmark piece of rape culture.
Across the globe, history shows examples of Black people being viewed and treated as less than fully human. One example of this is the historical case of Saartjie Baartman, who was a South African slave unwillingly sent to London in the early 1800s to be exhibited as a part of a freak show. Displayed in a cage and wearing next to nothing, Saartjie was paraded around circuses, museums, and bars, where onlookers paid, poke, prod, and gawk at her atypical large butt and features. In the eyes of white Europeans, Saartjie was not considered fully human, which justified her subjugation and objectification. Subtle dehumanizing perceptions with their damaging consequences still exist toward Black people. For instance, Black people are still implicitly associated with animalistic concepts, and Black women are more commonly presented in visual media as animals and are objectified to a greater extent than white women. Research suggests that Black women report higher levels of experience objectification than other ethnic groups. Further, the sexualization of Black women may contribute to their objectification by others. A large body of research suggests that being presented in sexualized ways facilitates a target's objectification. Another example of history is the concept of the Jezebel, an alluring and seductive African American woman who is highly sexualized and valued purely for her sexuality. According to Jewell, the Jezebel is a worldly seductress who fulfills the sex objectification requirements of white womanhood. She is reduced to her body and treated as little more than a tool that exists for the pleasures of others. Although hypersexuality and many features of the Jezebel stereotype can be imposed on white women, the notion of the Jezebel is particularly pronounced for Black women, signifying their inferior status. Recent research suggests that Black women are hypersexualized to a greater degree in the media than are white women. For instance, a research that analyzed the content of 120 music videos, finding that Black women characters were significantly more likely to appear in provocative clothing than any other character type, including white women. Other content analyses have revealed that Black women are typically depicted as hypersexual in rap music videos, with an overemphasis on their sexualized physical appearance. Rather than being shown as active agents in the clip, they are presented simply as decorative objects, their sole purpose being to look attractive and desirable to male audiences. Research also suggests that the consequences of sexualization, including sexual violence, are far greater for Black women than they are for white women. For instance, Black survivors of rape are not only considered more sexually promiscuous than white women, they are also less likely to have experience defined as rape or held more responsible, and others are less likely to believe the incident should be reported to authorities compared to white survivors of rape.